Hey everyone, Dismal Hero here, and I'd like to give a big thanks to my good friend Garrett for providing us with this first story. Hanging out and talking with him recently, he told me about a Bigfoot encounter he had a few years ago, and thankfully, he remembered most of the details and wrote it down. So I'm here to share his story with you. I used to be a skeptic, but when one of your good friends tells you had a personal encounter, it kinda changes your opinion. So I wouldn't go as far to say as I'm a believer, but I think it's possible. Anyways, without further ado, here's Encounters with Bigfoot 2. This was the summer of 2012. Me and about 4 others decided to go camping for the weekend at a localish Yogi Bear campsite that the others had been to several times with family. This time, just us guys trying to get out of the city, have fun, and cut loose. We were there for the entire weekend, riding around on golf carts, blasting music, fishing, and the occasional friendly interactions with the families that had trailers and campers set up there. We, on the other hand, just brought tents and stayed in the wooded area on the other side of the lake. There were a few others camping out there too, but nowhere near us, which allowed us to be up all night and listen to music and do really whatever we wanted. The first 2 days, we just hung out and did the basic camping type things, grilling out and stuff like that. And at night, ended up cruising around on the golf cart, having a few beers and just hanging out together. But over the course of the few days, nothing really happened, and it was even somewhat boring at times. Jump ahead to Saturday night. We decided to leave around 10 a.m. the next day to make it home at a decent time. I had a bit too much to drink on Friday night, I'll admit, so I was taking it easy on Saturday and actually stopped drinking so I wouldn't be hungover on the drive home. My friends were still being pretty loud as they started calming down from their wild weekend, and they decided to end it by building a fire with large wooden pallets. It got pretty high, and I was a little bit nervous that they would do something stupid. I got them to calm down a little as the fire dwindled to a normal size, so I started picking up the area just to make the morning a little less crazy. Then, we heard it. We all shut up real fast and stared into the woods in that same direction. Just typing this gives me goosebumps and makes my hair stand up. They couldn't shut up talking about what it was, but I sternly told them to be quiet so I could hear it. 3 extremely deep, menacing, blood-curdling howls came from the exact area we had explored earlier in the day. That area seemed to be for cattle. My mind started racing, thinking of what animal could howl like that. I know 100% it was not a cow. I've been around all sorts of cows and bulls, from my grandfather's beef cattle population on his property, and I know what they sound like. Along with that comes coyotes and the occasional wolf. I've never heard a bear before, but for the area we were in, I'd say it was unlikely a black bear. So the guys were freaked out. I was intrigued and scared and excited at the same time. It was something that I've never heard in the woods. It scared the crap out of all of us, even the toughest kid there, and it seemed to be very close. So it did the 3 howls in succession. Then maybe 10 minutes later, we heard it down the path, maybe 100 or so yards away. At that point, we put out the fire and called it a night. They all slept in the cars, but I insisted on staying in the tent. I was so perplexed by it that I wanted to be out there if it howled again. Nothing happened, and they seemed not to care anymore the next day. I then started looking online in the next few days, looking for any audio clips. That's when I found the infamous Ohio Howls clip, and I freaked out. It was almost identical, just a tad longer howls, and way further away, what sounds like a valley. I sent the clip to all my friends. They agreed that it sounded exactly like what we heard. So this story is actually my older brother's tale, I believe him 100%. This man is not known for BS, and this has changed his view on the world of the paranormal. Before, he absolutely did not believe in anything that he could not see, touch, taste, or feel. Ken's job takes him all over the states of Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, and Ohio. He is contracted by companies who are planning on building factories, business parks, etc. He goes to these properties and walks the entire length of the undeveloped area, taking photos and drafting where the utilities are to be placed. So, for long stretches of time, he is out in the field, sometimes miles away from civilization. This one particular day, he was in the eastern part of Kentucky. Now, his view of this property was that it was massive, forested, and hilly. In fact, he was unsure why anyone would want to build this far out, but whatever, it's his job. He hiked for about an hour up this hill, then stopped to write down the math. Ken is standing in a clearing for maybe 15 minutes when he says he realizes he had been hearing a strange whizzing noise by his head. He looks up, around, and doesn't see anyone. That's when a stone goes whizzing past his head. He stands still, trying to logically figure out how stones are being thrown at him, miles away from anyone. At first, he says he thought it was the backwoods hillbillies or something, messing with him. But the woods were absolutely silent. No shifting footsteps. Not even birds singing. My brother is a big guy, over 6 feet, and has had run-ins with snakes, raccoons, and even a bobcat. But nothing scared him as bad as this. He slowly began to pack up his gear. All the while, stones were still being thrown. That's when he said a huge piece of wood was hurled at him. Realizing he had stumbled into something or someone's space, he called out, "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here and I'm leaving." Then turned tail and booked it. All the while, expecting someone or something to chase him. A couple days ago, my grandma told me a story that happened to her. When she was around 8, she lived in a small house with her sisters and parents. It was in the middle of a large field, and it had trees surrounding it towards the back. There was only a narrow dirt road that connected them with the outside world. One night in May of 1964, she and her sisters had went to sleep for the night. She woke up about 2 hours after she fell asleep, and got the horrible feeling that she was being watched. They had a small window, 6 feet up on the wall in their room. She turned and looked at it, and she saw 2 glowing eyes. She got really scared, so she woke up one of her sisters. Her sister began to freak out, and she hid under the blanket. They sat there until the eyes left the window. The next day, they told their mother about the incident, and she didn't believe them. That was until they investigated the outside. There were enormous footprints leading to the window, and then back into the woods. From that point on, my grandmother and her sisters were not allowed to play near the woods. A couple months later, they heard from their neighbor who lived about 7 miles away. He said that he lost a couple of his cows. He had no idea where they went. There was no blood or body, and the fence was undamaged. It was almost like something had just carried them away. After she told me about this story, I think she may have had a Bigfoot encounter. What are some of your opinions and explanations for this? Hey everyone, Dismal Hero here. Thanks for checking out the video, and if you like what you saw, make sure to subscribe so you're always up to date with my new videos. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.